The notification arrived at 6:47 in the evening on February 14th. I was standing in our kitchen in a black dress I had bought 3 weeks earlier. The kind of dress that requires a specific occasion to justify. A square neckline, fitted through the waist. The color of a winter night. I had spent 40 minutes on my hair and another 15 on makeup that was supposed to look effortless and did not entirely succeed. We had dinner reservations at 8, or so I believed. The notification was from our joint credit card app, the one we had linked to both our phones when we consolidated finances 2 years into the marriage. A convenience? We had called it. A way to stay on the same page about spending. It showed a charge. Place 40 minutes earlier. Maison Laurent. $212. A deposit for a reservation. Maison Laurent was where Daniel had proposed to me 5 years ago. A corner table by the window. A ring I had not expected. A question I had answered before he finished asking it. We went back every year on our anniversary. Every year on Valentine's Day. It was our place in the way that certain places become a couple's place when enough significant moments happen inside them. I had assumed that was where we were going tonight. Daniel had said he had made a reservation somewhere special, had told me to wear something nice, had smiled in the way he smiled when he thought he was being romantic. I had not thought to question it. I had simply believed him, the way I had simply believed him about many things over the course of 5 years. The deposit charge had been placed at 6:07. While I was in the shower, while I was getting dressed, while I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror deciding whether the earrings I had chosen were right for the evening, Daniel was not home. He had texted at 5:30, said he was running late at the office, said he would meet me at the restaurant, said to take a cab and he would be there by 8. I looked at the notification again, at the timestamp, at the amount, at the name of the restaurant where he had proposed to me, charged to a card we shared, placed at a time when he was supposedly still at the office, a deposit for a reservation, not a charge for a meal, a reservation being held for later in the evening. Our reservation at Maison Laurent was supposed to be at 8. This charge had been placed at 6:07, which meant someone had called the restaurant at 6:07 to hold a table, which meant Daniel had made 2 reservations at Maison Laurent tonight, or someone else had made this one, or Daniel had made 1 reservation, and it was not for us. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter, looked at the black dress in the reflection of the darkened window above the sink, at the earrings I had spent 4 minutes choosing, at the hair I had spent 40 minutes on. I picked up my phone, opened my contacts, found the number for Maison Laurent that I had saved 5 years ago and never deleted. It rang twice. Maison Laurent. Good evening, I said. My voice was steady. I was surprised by how steady it was. My name is Claudia Reeves. I am calling to check on a reservation. Of course. What name is the reservation under? I paused for 1 second. Could you check under Daniel Reeves? And also under Daniel Harmon. Harmon was Daniel's middle name, the name he sometimes used when he did not want to be easily found. A brief silence, the sound of keys being pressed. I have a reservation under Daniel Harmon, the woman said. 8:30 this evening, table for 2. Thank you, I said. I also wanted to ask, is there a reservation under Claudia Reeves or Daniel Reeves for this evening? More keys. No, I am sorry. I do not see anything under those names. I see. Thank you very much. I ended the call, stood in my kitchen in my black dress for a long moment. 8:30, under his middle name, table for 2. And I was supposed to be in a cab at 7:45 heading to the same restaurant where he would arrive, presumably, with someone else. There is a particular kind of stillness that arrives after a certain type of information. Not shock exactly, more like the moment after a loud sound ends and your brain catches up to what it just heard. Everything becomes very clear, very quiet, very focused. I had been in that stillness before, not with Daniel, with the information I had been quietly gathering over the past 3 months. Because here is what I had not told Daniel, had not told anyone, had been carrying alone since November, when I first noticed something was wrong with our joint account statements. Small withdrawals, cash, ATM transactions at locations I did not recognize, a hotel charge in a city where Daniel said he had a conference that I had later, casually, in a way that felt like ordinary conversation, confirmed with a colleague of his had never taken place. A restaurant charge in that same city on the same night, a jewelry purchase at a store I had never heard of for an amount that was enough for something real. I had said nothing. I had done what I always did when something required careful handling. I had documented it, quietly, methodically, the way I had been trained to handle information in 12 years as a forensic accountant. I had a folder, a real one, on my personal laptop, backed up to a cloud account Daniel did not know existed. Screenshots, bank statements, credit card records, the hotel charge, the conference that did not happen, the jewelry receipt from a jeweler in a city where Daniel had no business being. I had been building this folder for 3 months, not because I was certain, not because I had enough to act on, but because something in me, some professional instinct trained by years of finding what people hid in numbers, had recognized a pattern. And I had learned a long time ago to document first and understand later. I went to the bedroom, changed out of the black dress, folded it carefully and placed it back in the garment bag in the closet, put on jeans and a sweater, removed the earrings, wiped off the careful makeup with a gentleness that seemed, under the circumstances, almost absurd. Then I sat down at my desk and opened my personal laptop. I called my attorney at 7:15 on Valentine's Day evening. Her name was Sandra Park. I had retained her 3 weeks earlier, not because I was ready to file anything, but because I had learned from years of financial investigation that you retain counsel before you need counsel. You do not wait until the situation is urgent to find the person who will help you navigate it. Sandra answered on the third ring. She was the kind of attorney who answered her phone on Valentine's Day evening because she understood that the moments that required her were not scheduled around holidays. "Claudia," she said, "what has happened?" I told her, briefly, the credit card notification, the call to the restaurant, the reservation under his middle name, the table for 2 at 8:30 on Valentine's Day at the restaurant where he had proposed to me. Sandra was quiet for a moment. "Are you safe?" she said first, because that was the kind of attorney she was. "Yes, I am at home." "Is he there?" "No, he is meeting someone at Maison Laurent at 8:30. Another brief pause. "Do you want to move forward with what we discussed?" 3 weeks earlier, in Sandra's office, we had discussed what moving forward would look like. The steps, the sequence, what needed to happen first and what could follow. I had not made a decision then. I had simply wanted to understand the landscape. "Yes," I said, "I want to move forward. I will need you to send me everything in that folder tonight. Every document, every screenshot, all of it. I will send it within the hour." "Good. And Claudia, do not confront him tonight. Do not send messages. Do not call the restaurant. Do not do anything that could be characterized as harassment or instability. Just send me the documents and let me handle the rest." "I understand. Go somewhere comfortable tonight. A friend, a hotel, somewhere that is not that apartment." "I will." I sent Sandra the folder at 7:48. Every document, every screenshot, every carefully organized piece of evidence that I had been building since November with the patient, systematic attention of someone who has spent 12 years finding what people try to hide. Then I called my closest friend, a woman named Priscilla who lived 20 minutes away and had been my friend since graduate school and who answered the phone when I said I needed somewhere to be tonight without asking a single question beyond what should I order for dinner. I packed a bag, clothes for 3 days, my laptop, my important documents, which I had reorganized into a separate folder 2 weeks earlier when I understood that reorganizing them might become necessary. My grandmother's ring that I wore on my right hand, and that was mine in every sense that mattered. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter, not dramatically, not as a statement, simply because it did not belong to me in the way it once had, and putting it in my jewelry box felt wrong and taking it with me felt dishonest. I left it on the counter beside the credit card that had shown me the truth at 6:47 on Valentine's Day evening. Then I picked up my bag and left. Priscilla lived in a warm apartment full of plants and cookbooks and the particular comfortable disorder of someone who had made a home entirely for herself without anyone else's input. She opened the door and looked at my face and handed me a glass of wine without a word. We ate Thai food from the restaurant on her corner, watched a documentary about deep-sea creatures that Priscilla said she had been saving for a special occasion, and this seemed as special as anything. At some point, I started laughing, not because anything was funny, because the alternative was the other thing, and I had already decided I was not doing the other thing tonight. I turned off my phone at 10, set it on the nightstand in Priscilla's guest room, lay in the dark and listened to the city outside and felt, underneath the grief that was there and real and not pretended away, something I had not expected, relief. the particular relief of a person who has been waiting for something to resolve and has finally, undeniably, received the resolution. I had known. Some part of me had known since November, and the knowing had been, in its way, more exhausting than this. More exhausting than the black dress and the 40 minutes on my hair and the earrings and the dinner reservation that was never for me. It was done. The waiting part was done. What came next would be difficult, but it would be real. And I had always done better with real. Daniel called 11 times that night. I did not answer. He texted 4 times. I did not read them. He showed up at our apartment at 11:30. According to the building's entry log that the doorman mentioned to me later with the careful neutrality of someone who had seen many things and knew which ones to note and which ones to forget, I was not there. I did not return to the apartment for 6 days. Sandra called me on Friday morning. Her voice had the particular efficiency of someone delivering news they have organized carefully. The documentation I had sent Thursday night was substantial, forensic quality, she said, which was not surprising given my professional background. 3 months of evidence, enough to establish a clear pattern. Combined with the Valentine's Day reservation under his middle name at the restaurant where he had proposed to me, the picture was, in Sandra's words, unambiguous. She had filed the initial paperwork Friday morning. Daniel received the documents at his office at 2 in the afternoon on the Friday before Valentine's Day weekend. I know this because his assistant, a young woman named Beth who had been kind to me at every office event I had attended over 4 years and who had, I think, known things she had not felt it was her place to say, texted me a single message that afternoon. It simply said, "He just got served. I thought you should know." I thanked her. Meant it. What happened after that, I observed from the careful distance of someone who has decided that their own life is more worthy of attention than the collapse of someone else's. Daniel called Sandra's office 14 times in the first 2 days. Sandra took one of those calls, informed him that direct contact with me was not advisable and that all communication should go through her. He called me anyway. I did not answer. He sent emails, long ones, the kind that cycle through justification and minimization and apology and back to justification again. The pattern so predictable that I recognized it from the 3rd sentence of the first one and did not read the rest. His family called. His mother twice. His brother once. I did not answer those calls either. Priscilla screened my calls for a week and became, in that period, more protective of my peace than anyone had been in years. The woman, I learned through Sandra, was someone Daniel had met 18 months earlier, a colleague at a firm he had done consulting work for. The jewelry receipt was for a bracelet. The hotel stays had been 4 of them over 14 months. The Valentine's Day reservation had been her idea apparently. She had not known about me with any particular certainty. She had known enough to be suspicious and had chosen, as people sometimes choose, to look away from the parts that were inconvenient. I did not feel anger toward her, not much. She had been lied to as thoroughly as I had, just in a different direction. I felt anger toward Daniel, clean and clear and finite, the kind of anger that does not require an audience. The divorce was not simple, but it was not the worst kind either. We had a prenuptial agreement. We had been careful, early in the marriage, about keeping certain assets separate. Sandra said this would make things cleaner. It took 8 months. I moved into an apartment of my own in March, a 1-bedroom in a neighborhood I had always liked and that Daniel had found inconvenient. High ceilings, a window over the kitchen sink that faced east so the mornings were bright, a building with a good superintendent who fixed things promptly and a neighbors who were quiet in the evenings. I made it mine, slowly, on weekends. The way you make a place yours when you are also working full-time and navigating a divorce and allowing yourself the grief that comes with the end of something you once believed in. The grief was real. I want to be clear about that. The marriage had been real. The love, or what I had understood as love, had been real. The 5 years had contained things worth grieving. The grief was allowed and I let myself feel it on a reasonable schedule that did not require me to perform it for anyone. By summer, the apartment felt like home. I kept the black dress, wore it to a work event in September and to a friend's birthday dinner in October and to a gallery opening in November. It was a good dress. The dress had done nothing wrong. My work continued. 12 years of forensic accounting had built a reputation I was proud of. I was good at finding what people tried to hide in numbers. I was thorough, patient, systematic. These were, as it turned out, also the skills that had protected me when I needed protecting. The folder I had built over 3 months. The documentation gathered quietly and methodically before I had any certainty about what I was documenting. The retained attorney weeks before I needed her. The organized important documents. The packed bag that was ready because I had understood, on some level, that it might need to be. I had not been planning betrayal. I had been responding to information with the training I had and the tools available to me, the same way I always worked. Sandra told me once, during one of our later meetings when the papers were almost signed and we could speak more freely, that the documentation I had brought her on Valentine's Day night was the most organized evidence she had received in 15 years of practice. I said that was my job. She said it had also been my survival. She was right about both. Valentine's Day the following year arrived on a Tuesday. I worked through the morning, had lunch with a colleague, came home in the early evening to my east-facing apartment with the bright kitchen windows. I changed out of my work clothes, put on the black dress, made a reservation at a restaurant I had wanted to try for months. A new place, no history, no significant moments embedded in its walls. Just a restaurant that had received good reviews and served food I was curious about. I sat at a table for one by the window, ordered a glass of good wine, asked for the menu and took my time with it and chose what I wanted without consulting anyone or accounting for anyone's preferences but my own. The waiter was kind. The food was excellent. The wine was exactly right. When the check came, I paid it, tipped generously, walked home through the February cold and let myself into my apartment and stood in the bright kitchen for a moment, still in the black dress, feeling the particular quality of an evening that had been entirely, without compromise, mine. No notification on a shared credit card app. No reservation under a middle name. No table for two at a restaurant where someone else had proposed. Just a Tuesday in February. A good meal. A dress that fit exactly right. A life that was, finally and completely, my own. I had not needed the restaurant manager to recognize my name that night 11 months earlier. Had not needed anyone to intervene or explain or take my side. I had needed what I had always had. My own careful attention to what the numbers were telling me. My own willingness to act on what I knew. My own documentation kept in a folder on a personal laptop backed up to a cloud account no one else could access. I had needed the skills I already had, applied to the situation in front of me. That was all. And it had been exactly enough. Here is what I want to know. If you discovered on Valentine's Day evening that your spouse had made a reservation at your special place for someone else, would you have done what I did? Gathered your evidence, called your attorney, and left quietly? Or would you have gone to the restaurant and confronted them directly? Some people say you owe it to yourself to look someone in the eye and make them account for what they did. Others say that quiet, documented, legally sound action protects you better than any confrontation ever could. Do you think I was right to leave without a word? Or do you think Daniel deserved to see my face when he understood that I knew? And the question that stays with me, if you had been building that folder for 3 months and had not yet been certain, would you have trusted your instincts sooner? Or would you have kept waiting for more proof? Tell me your honest answer in the comments. If you believe people should face the consequences of their actions, hit subscribe. I have got more stories of justice that will blow your mind.